Hello and welcome back to The Unthinkable. I want you to think back to a time when you were just 9 years old. What was life like? The absence of responsibilities, the innocence of childhood memories, and the wild imagination of youth. Staying outside and running around the neighborhood until it was dark enough for the streetlights to come on. There's nothing like growing up with an entire world yet to discover. Even in the roughest of neighborhoods, there was still always something to be admired about life as an innocent child and kid growing up. This is the story of 9-year-old Jamaria Sessions, who grew up in Miami, Florida. Hot summer days and warm nights are what you would assume a typical 9-year-old would experience in a place like Miami. But unfortunately, it turned out that Jamaria Sessions was spending her childhood living through a literal hell on earth. She was born to LaJuan Sessions and Tadrina Dort. Shortly after Jamaria's birth, LaJuan and Tadrina also birthed another child, Jamaria's little sister, Jaliyah. Although it appears as though the relationship between LaJuan and Tadrina had run its course, they appeared if nothing else to at least be cordial enough with one another to keep in touch, though it's reported that LaJuan Sessions had very little to do with his two daughters. During this time, Jamaria and her younger sister lived with their maternal grandmother, Althea, who they affectionately referred to as simply Nana. But tragedy would strike this family early on as Tadrina would be diagnosed with cancer. And while she battled, the daughters remained within their grandmother's home, with Tadrina, as their already distant father, LaJuan, was now cut off from them legally due to his incarceration on multiple charges. Tadrina was eventually able to beat the leukemia, a victory that was, however, short-lived, as she would pass away from congestive heart failure in 2022. She was just 24 years old. As the children continued to stay with their grandmother even after their mother's death, everything the girls had come to know would change the following year when LaJuan would be released from prison. It was October of 2023 when Althea would find out that the girls Jamaria and Jaliyah had unexpectedly been picked up from their Orange County school without her permission by their father, LaJuan. Althea was shocked and angry and immediately questioned authorities as to why LaJuan was allowed to pick the girls up and take them away without explanation or warning. But she received no answers, and legally, there was nothing that she could do about it since LaJuan was their biological father. And so, in just a year's time, the two girls had lost their most trusted parent and protector in their mother, Tadrina, as well as the guidance and connection to the matriarch of their family, in Althea, as they were practically ripped away from her care. And now the girls were with their father, who was already known to law enforcement as a criminal and menace to the streets. But they weren't alone with him as their overseer. Their father's girlfriend, Tyshelle Martin, would also live with them. But the two girls had no way of knowing that the loving home they'd known for most of their lives and were ripped away from would be the greatest memories of their young lives. Life with their father LaJuan and his live-in girlfriend, who had children of her own, would be nothing like the lives they experienced with their mother and grandmother. There was no love lost here, and life for Jamaria in particular was about to become a painful existence, full of suffering from both mental and physical abuse. Parents often have reservations about their children staying with other adults, as they know that the love they have for their own child cannot be replicated by another. Whether it started with physical or mental abuse, we'll never know. But soon after they were taken from their grandmother, it is assumed the physical abuse started thereafter. This abuse will continue until a phone call is made in the early morning hours of June the 17th, just before 5 a.m.
My child is not, she's not breathing and she's swollen and she's not responding. I just woke up and my
What's going on?
My child is not responding.
Lake EMS responded to 16017 Harbor Drive, where LaJuan Sessions and Tyshelle Martin called home. On the phone call, Tyshelle reports that her daughter was, quote, unresponsive, and it wouldn't take long for the medical team to arrive and shortly thereafter pronounced 9-year-old Jamaria Sessions deceased. But as they began examining her body for possible causes, they began to notice several injuries, including a large number of cuts, small punctures, burns, and possible bite marks covering her entire body. All of which were in various stages of healing, meaning that this wasn't a one-time occurrence. They were physically looking at scars that told a horrific story of a very sick pattern of abuse. The medical staff immediately requested the presence of the county sheriff's office after they found rigor mortis had begun to set in within Jamaria's jaw. According to Florida State University, if a body is cold and stiff, then it means that death likely occurred anywhere between 8 to 36 hours prior. During their examination of Jamaria on scene, in addition to the abrasions and other wounds, were superficial lacerations indicative of being pinched with a significant amount of force. Her face was swollen, and some of her teeth were broken. She also had contusions all over her body and blood within her left ear. After the authorities are notified of what's happened and the extensive injuries all over Samaria's body, their investigation into exactly what happened began. As it turned out, investigators were about to uncover an entire cache of information through video surveillance, recorded and taken right from inside of the Sessions home, where internal cameras provided insight to the horrors that Jamaria had been subjected to. According to the affidavit, Vivint Security provided more than 2,800 videos from both inside and outside of the Sessions household to the Lake County Sheriff's Office. The following information was taken directly from their documentation. The video shows Jamaria Sessions being viciously attacked by the family pet, a 103-pound male Rottweiler, as Jamaria was just out of frame. However, Tyshell Martin could be seen holding the leash of the dog and is heard encouraging the dog to bite Jamaria Sessions as Jamaria laid on the floor, ending with Jamaria Sessions attempting to stand up in the doorway coming into frame. The next clip shows Jamaria Sessions staggering, nude and disheveled. Jamaria's hair, previously in a partial bun, was now messy, and her extensions were falling out of her hair. It appeared that the dog had bitten the child's head, pulling at her hair, at the command of Tyshell Martin. Following this clip, Jamaria Sessions is commanded to stand in the room with her arms up by Tyshell Martin. Jamaria Sessions exhibited an orbital sway, appearing to be disoriented, similar to being intoxicated, and leaned forward to pick up a blanket to cover herself. This prompted Tyshell Martin to deliver a kick to the rear of the child, causing her to collapse to the floor. The child lay motionless, moaning in pain, as Tyshell Martin continued to kick her hip and eventually her stomach area at full force. Jesus Christ. When the child did not get up, Tyshell Martin then grabbed the child by her hair, pulling her across the floor, with minimal resistance by Jamaria Sessions, who appeared to be disoriented and motionless. The child was dragged near the stairs, which is where the dog attack occurred, which was just out of frame. Tyshell Martin continued to command the child, Jamaria Sessions, to stand up, and as Jamaria physically could not comply, Jamaria was repeatedly struck and shaken by Tyshell Martin. The next video clip begins with Tyshell Martin stating what sounds like, "I'm fixing to kill her." Jamaria was found dead less than 30 hours later. If that wasn't bad enough, there would be even more disturbing facts to uncover. Various messages between Jamaria's father, Lawan, and his girlfriend revealed an extensive history of texts, proving that Lawan had known all along about the awful treatment of his daughter, and even conspired with her to come up with various ways to torture and abuse her. Messages between them further revealed that Tyshell often bragged to Lawan about the different ways she was inflicting mental and physical damage to his daughter, to which he would respond with laughter and urge her to continue, as he, too, would suggest other ways to inflict harm upon her by making comments about a personal boot camp to send Jamaria through, where she would have to endure a torturous environment, suffering long sessions of extreme exercise and extreme amounts of physical abuse. Jamaria was often kicked, dragged, and physically abused right in front of her other siblings, including Tyshell Martin's other children. Lawan was just as guilty, if not more so, than his girlfriend, since he alone had the responsibility of protecting his little girl. But instead, after her mother's death, he turned a blind eye, knowing all along that she was being subjected to harsh, cruel, and sick punishment and abuse.
Child abuse allegations. His girlfriend is already behind bars. She's charged with murdering 9-year-old Jamaria Sessions. Deputies say this is one of the worst cases of child abuse they've ever seen. Stephanie Buffamonte spoke exclusively with Jamaria's grandmother. So Stephanie, she's Jamaria's paternal grandmother, which means she's also Lawan Sessions' mother. What does she have to say about all this?
She tells me that if her son is found guilty, he's going to have to pay for his crimes and pay for being involved in his own daughter's murder. She says knowing what she does now, she wishes she could have done more.
She was failed. It does not matter. She didn't tell me. I didn't see it. When I saw her, she didn't have any bruises on her.
Roxana Payne's son, Lawan Sessions, is charged with aggravated manslaughter in the death of his daughter, 9-year-old Jamaria Sessions. Lawan's girlfriend, Tyshell Martin, was arrested earlier this week for murdering the little girl.
For his part, he has to pay. For her part, she has to pay.
Court records say Jamaria was tortured, brutally beaten, and died from multiple injuries, including blunt force trauma to her head and torso in June. According to the arrest affidavit, evidence on his phone shows Lawan did encourage, suggest, plan, permit, and assist Martin in extreme physical abuse. In text messages, he and Martin joked about the abuse and made comments about boot camp and creating a torturous environment where Jamaria would suffer long sessions of extreme exercise and abuse. Security cameras in the home caught Martin ordering her 100-pound Rottweiler to attack Jamaria too.
The dog had bit her before. You know, it was on her arm. She said I took the dog's food, not that this dog was attacking me.
Jamaria's grandmother says she did not see the signs and wishes she could turn back time.
I always ask her if she's okay. She runs in and grabs and hugs me. I'm good, Nana. Had she said something, it would have been different.
The official autopsy report found that 9-year-old Jamaria Sessions died of blunt force trauma to her head, torso, and other extremities. On September 23rd of 2024, both Lawan Sessions, age 26, and Tyshell Martin, age 34, were indicted by a grand jury. Martin, despite the video evidence, pled not guilty. They are both currently being held without bond. Tyshell Martin stands accused of first-degree murder, aggravated child abuse, and child neglect. Florida prosecutors plan to seek the death penalty for her actions, a penalty that I wholeheartedly believe she deserves. However, should it pass, whatever death Tyshell Martin receives will pale in comparison to the one she gave to a 9-year-old child who loved animals so much that she desired to one day be a veterinarian. A 9-year-old innocent child who lost her entire world when her mother died. A 9-year-old whose last moments came at the behest of a deranged piece of trash who ordered a 103-pound Rottweiler to attack that 9-year-old helpless and defenseless child. I have a few ideas myself in which Tyshell Martin should be forced to leave this world, and none of them include mercy. As for the worthless deadbeat that is Lawan Sessions, he is currently being held on charges of aggravated manslaughter. Now I'm sure that when Tadrina was fighting for her life, that she had no idea what would befall her daughter after her death. But I'm sure that she never, ever imagined this. This is a tragic case on every level and a complete and utter failure of the Child Protective Services. The only solace that I take from this is knowing that 9-year-old Jamaria Sessions' suffering is at long last over. And may her soul rest in eternal peace. And now, let the suffering of those that caused her death begin.